Welcome to the Robes Away channel. I'm your host, Mark. If you're new here, hey, I appreciate the click. Hopefully you subscribe. Hey, comment below. Let me know that you're new. All my returnees, love you all, of course, and we are going to be talking about a special fragrance. We're going to go in the past a little bit with this one right here. So today's test drive is on the house of Guerlain, and it is part of Les Déserts d'Orient collection. This one called Songe d'un Bois d'été. In 2019, this one was repackaged. It was lucky enough, out of the 3 releases, 2 of them were re-released, repackaged into the ever-growing Les Absolus d'Orient line, which is absolutely huge now, and it was renamed, instead of Songe, is now known as Bois Mystérieux. This bottle, as you can see here, is the old version, and it will be the scent I review today. I absolutely love the presentation of these bottles. I absolutely hate that they've changed it, but I understand why they had 2 different lines, you know, marketing to a certain area in the world. So I understood the repackaging and kind of put them all in one line. I wish it was actually this line with these bottles, because they're absolutely beautiful. Now, before I get into the review, on to our sponsor of the day, FragranceX.com. I did want to take the time to thank them. And if you wanted a bottle of, not this one in particular, but the repackaged, rename it Bois Mystérieux, I just checked today. It is available on Fragrance X. Check out Fragrance X. Support me by utilizing my coupon code on their site. It is my YouTube name, Robes08, and you put that in their coupon section and you get 15% off of your purchase. You don't have to purchase that, anything on the website, it will work. Now let's go under the hood for Songe. Let's take a look at some stats on this one. It was released, of course, in 2012 and then repackaged and of course renamed the Bois Mystérieux in 2019. The nose behind this is their in-house parfumier, Thierry Wasser. I feel like I've been talking a lot about Guerlain's recently. I've been reviewing a lot of my collection, which is right over my head actually. And the major notes to my nose for this one, I could have went with several. This thing is complex to the T. There's things like cedar, there's some spices, there's some herbal components, there's some resinous components in this fragrance. There's some woody components, of course. So I went with leather, myrrh, and saffron. And again, like all the components I'm talking about, and we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this review. There's a lot more to this fragrance than those 3 notes, but I had to pick 3. Let's get to sniffing. So Songe is my scent of the day today, but I did want to remind myself of this introduction. I'm just going to spray 1 spray on the back of my hand here while I'm describing the introduction of this scent. Now, of course, with the test drive, I have worn this for approximately a week, so I kind of know what I'm getting here. So Songe is... Man, and it's the thing with this this line is that if you blindfolded me, I would never guess this is a Guerlain fragrance at all. It really does not have their footprint all over it. And I don't mean by quality, I just mean you kind of know when you smell a Guerlain. They have their, of course, their Guerlain ad in there. This does not. This is absolutely left field for the brand, and I absolutely love that. Take chances. Songe is... How can I explain this just right off the bat? It is an explosion of complexity. This fragrance right here may very well be, off the top, one of the most complex and interesting Guerlains on the market. And that is saying something, because they have a huge roster of fragrances. It's dry, it's spicy, it's herbal. It has some green nuances, of course, with the herbal. Smoky nuances, woody nuances. It has some sweetness, it has some resinous qualities. It's warm, it's balsamic. It's all that wrapped into one. Songe is, just like Rose Nacré that I just reviewed, really has complexity and an air to it that I absolutely love in fragrances. Now, what it greets you with, and I could start this fragrance review, and no, this is not a review, this is just a test drive. It greets you with multiple different accords, and the one thing that really gripped me, and I feel is the backbone of this release, is charred woods. Mostly cedar, but it has a almost burnt feel to the cedar. It almost feels like you just had a fire in the forest and you're just walking through and you can smell that char of the cedar. The wood hasn't completely burnt. This is where I'm going with this. It greets you with that. The cedar is the lifeline of Songe. It will be more prominent in the dry down than this opening. This opening is very busy. So you're going to get a lot of things. Following that, you get a wallop of spices with herbal touches too. So you get kind of like knocked in the nose in two different ways, herbal and spicy qualities. Now the herbal touches really do make this opening interesting, and I think, you know, some of the spices and some of the herbal tendencies are the X factors in this release. We've all smelt things like cedar wood, we've smelt smoke, we've smelt all these things, and I'm not saying these spices and these herbal components we haven't smelt, but they're really kind of unique, and it's the two aspects in this release that I really feel draws me. I love my leather-based fragrances, I love my cedar-based fragrances, myrrh-based fragrances, all that. But the spices and the herbal tendencies are quite unique in here. Now the herbal touch in this release is laurel. Now laurel really makes its mark in the opening of Songe. It gives its familiar spicy, earthy undertones. There's a little citrus bite here. There's obviously an herbal tendency here and pine needle-like quality. So a very complex note, but a really interesting note, and it really makes this thing different. I feel without this note, it would be missing a lot of its personality. It'd still be great, but the laurel is what makes this what it is. It often also gives a camphorous feel to scents. So you're gonna sense that in this fragrance. Definitely, you're gonna be like, is that like a mint, patchouli? Like, what is this? It's the laurel. And think of the herbal quality in this one as a very dry, like a dry bay leaf for the herbal component. Very interesting, well composed, and it goes well with the rest of the fragrance. It's a very interesting addition, very much a welcomed one, one that you don't see much in fragrances. So it's one that I felt was an X factor in this release. Now that is backed by thundering spices of, let's go with the saffron first. It gives its familiar sweet, spicy tone. At this point, the spices almost goes black peppery. It has a lot of bite to it. So I almost feel like there's some pepper in here. And the saffron in this release is very ultra realistic, and I feel like it's been probably 3 or 4 reviews in the past couple months that I've had really good saffron-based fragrances, and this one, not saffron-based, but this element, the saffron in here is very 3D. It gives off like everything that saffron would give, very realistic. It gives a leathery kick to the fragrance. The leathery kick actually amps up much more into the heart of this release, into the back end. So you're gonna get some leathery touches here. There's definitely, and this is something with the note breakdown that you have to be careful with some of these brands, is the note breakdown sometimes don't tell you the whole story. There's a sweaty cumin accord here that really engulfs the user. At least on my skin, this thing automatically, almost cumin takes over the scent. Almost. It really is a complex scent, and at times, like on some wearings, I'm like, whew. Oh yeah, okay, it's hitting me. And it's very much, I'm not gonna say short-lived, but that initial gulf when it comes in, engulfs you, but then it takes it more of a backseat and it's still there. So it does definitely engulf the user, makes itself known immediately in the top, then mellows into the dry down, but is still giving its unique take that you're like, okay, it's still here. So the cumin portion, just like the laurel, is an X factor in this release. You're either gonna love that or you're gonna hate it. Some users may not get the cumin, but I have to give that forewarning to people that do hate that. They don't see it in the note breakdown. And voila, here it is, big wallop of it. It really, for me, it's really inviting in this type of release. It really gives it more personality, more kick. So it is an X factor. So you must like spicy, challenging scents with Middle Eastern qualities. I kind of feel like giving out some comparables, like Al Oud by L'Artisan Parfumeur. That is a very spicy fragrance. Musk Kubla Khan from Serge Lutens also uses heavy spices there. The people that appreciate those two will appreciate Songe. I don't think Songe is in that level, but it's right below it as far as the spiciness. The spice is central in this opening and plays well with the herbal facets, of course, and the woody components in this release. So very busy opening, a lot of interesting moving parts in this release, but really a great introduction to a scent. Now, talking about comparables, this thing gets compared a lot to one of my darlings from the Christian Dior brand, and that's Leather Oud. Absolutely love Leather Oud. Maybe my best fragrance in my whole collection as far as my personal taste. Leather Oud, a short form fragrance review right here. Animalic, leathery based scent. Very much way too animalic to be compared to this. This doesn't have the bite. It doesn't have that animalic tone that a Leather Oud would have. It has, this is a big fragrance, like Leather Oud and like a Cuir by Mona Diorio. And what I mean by that is that they have huge entrances on your skin and they just engulf the user, and it's either do or die, you either love or hate. This one I would say is more tasteful. I hate to say more well blended, but I feel it's like more toned down than those. It shouts, but the skanky tones aren't skanky, right? Leather Oud there's some skank there. It's way more pronounced than in this release. This is a cumin-like, so this is more of a spicy thing than an animalic thing, at least to me. There is, of course, introducing that spice into a release like this, there is going to be some sweatiness in there, and it is going to make people think of, animalic ideas, which I could see why you would correlate those two fragrances together, but I don't think Leather Oud and this are in the same ballpark as far as animalics go. So the spices of saffron, cumin are in the forefront, and I did want to also mention there's cardamom in here that aids that whole spicy herbal thing here. It is definitely an herbal spice rack of an opening, and I feel like a lot of reviews kind of miss that point of Songe. They all want to emphasize the cedar, the myrrh, and the saffron and all that, but they don't really mention a lot of the other moving parts in this release. Now, once we get into the heart, the leathery tones do amp up, almost making you think that this is a leather-based scent. The leather here is very interesting, and that is something that I had to put on pause on this one, is that with multiple wearings, I was like, this is different. And it is different than a lot of leathers and fragrances that have a new car leather seats kind of smell, or a new purse, things like that. This leather smells worn, which is a unique idea. Really, you can smell the texture. You can smell that the leather has gone through things. You can smell that the leather maybe has a little bit of, I don't know, dirt on it. It really has went through some scratches and cracks in the leather. There's some saltiness. There's a lot going on in this leathery tone in this release. I love when fragrances kind of give you that imagery of texture, and this fragrance really gives you texture. To the herbal textures, to the spicy textures, to the leather. So fragrances like these that do give you texture, it really goes to, is this a function piece that it's just a fragrance, or is it an art form? And that's where this one kind of blends or melds into it. When a fragrance gives me colors and textures, and a lot of fragrances do, but here this is a fragrance that gives you multiples of that. It really gives, it really makes me imagine different things. So the leather in here, absolutely gorgeous here. It's going to amplify more the more this fragrance is on your skin. It's going to be more of a leather-based scent. The herbal tendencies and the spice take a smaller role here, but they're still around. You're still seeing little bits and pieces of the spices and the herbal tendencies. You start seeing more of the cedar wood now, matched with the dusty, woody oud thing going on. The patchouli starts showing more of itself, as it did have a role in the opening, but I felt like there's so much to talk about in the opening. I'm going to talk more about the patchouli here in the mid to the dry down, is it's showing more of itself here. The myrrh also shows quite a bit of itself more into the deep dry down. So it gives the leather and woods a smoky appeal, a resinous appeal to the release. It really actually darkens up as much as it felt like when I was describing it in the introduction. There's a lot going on, but you know, the laurels kind of brightens it up a little bit. And I say that lightly because it has like a citrusy like tone and an herbal like tone. So there's some aromatics in it, but the deeper you get into it, the darker this thing gets. Songe, just like Rose Nacré, has a dark balsamic, oily appeal throughout it. I really feel like there's a oiliness to both these fragrances throughout. I also wanted to touch base at the oud here. The note of oud in this release doesn't have much personality. It's more of a woody backdrop than anything else, to be quite honest with you. You're not buying this for that particular note, even though it does play its role, kind of like a Rose Nacré. It has a role, but it is not a central theme. So the dry down of Songe, it's much darker than the opening, which has, of course, those aromatic tendencies. The patchouli, the leather, the myrrh, the cedar take over the scent. Basically, that burnt charcoal-like woods that I was speaking about in the opening continue to show its personality in here. Really beautiful for people that really like different type of scents like I do. So overall, Songe is a daring / smooth at the same time, if you can believe me. You must like woods, leathers, but most importantly, I feel like something that is missing out in a lot of reviews is that you really need to like spices in your releases, and I guess also herbal tendencies, but it's more about the spice here. That will either make you go away from this release or keep you interested in this release. I feel that is the X factor. So now let's get into seasons, day, night, versatility, and performance. Seasons, I feel like this is fall and winter written all over it. Day or night, mostly, of course, a nighttime scent. I could see you wearing this in a cooler setting during the day, but more of a nighttime scent. Versatility, below average. There's a lot of fragrances that I feel are just average, and that goes to your taste and your journey and your comfort level of wearing. And I feel like this type of scent would be below average for a lot of people. Performance. This is where a lot of these, and the Rose Nacré did get some great reviews from me for performance, and this is the exact same thing here. This thing lasts 10 to 12 plus hours on my skin. No issues there. Projection is heavy. It's not beast, but it's heavy. I feel like performance isn't an issue with any of these. So on to my final thoughts on Songe, and I'm just going to make this quick and easy and painless for all of you. My final thoughts are, Songe is as daring as it gets with the House of Guerlain. I really enjoyed the laurel facet of this, the bay leaf, and the spice facets, which aren't really mentioned much in reviews, if at all. Many speak about the leathery tendencies, the wood and the myrrh, but to me the X factors are the spices and the laurel, which really sets this one apart. I really enjoyed that uniqueness of that herbal tendency up top with the laurel. That really sets this thing apart. It's a beautiful composition that is worth a sniff, in my personal opinion. So Songe d'un Bois d'été is now done. It is going to go into the vault for a full-fledged review, but it's time for you to hit us up in the comments below if you haven't already. What do you think of it? Let us know what you think about this one. You can even mention that you've only smelt Bois Mystérieux. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one. Do you smell the same thing as I do, or is it actually different than what I'm reviewing today? I look forward to reading all those different comments. And as always, a great report fragrance will make a lasting impression. Choose your scent wisely. Thanks for watching, YouTube.